Hello everybody and welcome back to another video, and before you click away because you think the video is glitched, this is how I made it. So today we are going to review a video by a YouTuber called Riley Dennis, a far-left genderqueer guy who has some incredibly skewed views on the world. You can tell that I'm not the only one thinking this when you look at her average like to dislike ratios. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I talk about stuff.
So I have this radical leftist idea that nobody should die just because they can't get a job. I know, it's really out there, wild stuff that could just never be accepted in the mainstream.
Of course, I'm sure anybody can agree that nobody should die just because they can't get a job. But the thing you look over is that there's welfare programs and unemployment insurance in most developed countries in the world, including the US, that are already in place.
What if we just guaranteed everyone a base standard of living? Food, water, shelter, that sort of thing. That way, people wouldn't have to be homeless and wouldn't have to starve. Because whatever we're doing right now, it's not working. So many people are homeless or face food insecurity.
It would be easy to believe you if I only thought with my emotions like you do. But a quick Google search shows me that only 0.17% of the population of the United States is homeless. So by those statistics, there's only 500,000 people in the entire United States of 360 million people that are homeless. So I would say what's happening right now is working.
It's time to try something new. And maybe our best way of ensuring that everybody has a base level standard of living is just to give them a monthly income, no strings attached. This is called the Universal Basic Income, or UBI, and it's been gaining traction for a while now. Small trials have been put into place in various cities, and more people are seeing it as a viable way to ensure that everyone has a base standard of living.
Oh god. Okay, so the reason that it works in small trials in cities is because there is a lot fewer people to be giving the money to. If you were to give it on the full scale of the US population, it would be somewhere in between $1 and $5 trillion per year. So if we do a quick calculation and we go 330 million, which is the population of the United States, divided by 2, we get 165 million. And then we multiply that by, let's say 15,000 would be the yearly income of these people. We still get $2.4 trillion, which is over half the US's yearly budget of $3.8 trillion. So I have no idea where she thinks we're just suddenly going to pull this money out of.
The basic idea behind UBI is simple. Every person deserves to survive. And in our current system, that means they need money for food and shelter and basic necessities. It's a simplified version of the welfare system where every month the government just writes a check to every resident, regardless of their income or job status or anything like that. What this does is it guarantees everyone has their basic needs met.
Okay, so apparently we're not just giving these to the people that need it, we're giving it to every single person in the United States, which is even more ridiculous because the number that we calculated before was half the population. So the whole population will be over the yearly budget of the entire United States. Once again, not sure where her mind is at. Also, I should point out that the term "no strings attached" should probably never be used when giving people money on welfare programs, for obvious reasons.
Everyone can survive. As it stands in our current system, if you don't have money for rent, you get evicted and become homeless. If you don't have money for food, you starve. And obviously, we have some measures in place to counteract this. The US runs a bunch of various welfare programs. Private organizations and nonprofits often work to help homeless people in various cities, and we have things like food banks to help people who face food insecurity. And while all these programs can help some people, they can't help everyone.
And somehow Riley thinks that we're going to be able to help everybody with her UBI program, even though we've already worked out that that's impossible. And food banks, welfare programs, homeless shelters, all that kind of stuff, they already help people. They help majority of people. The thing that people like Riley don't understand is that you will never be able to help the entire population of something as large as the US. You can get close, but you'll never get every single person.
And that means that many people still live in poverty, still can't find a stable place to live, or still can't reliably put food on the table. And that's a problem, because as a society, we should want everyone to be doing okay. We should want everyone, at the very least, to be able to survive. If you don't want that, I think you have bigger issues to work through that I can't really address in this video.
And of course I want everyone to survive, but the reality is that their tools are in place already for everybody to survive. They're just not always used. People get addicted to certain things. It's a very complicated topic, and also we don't even know how many people die from homelessness.
But assuming you want everyone to be doing okay, UBI could be one really good method for doing that. Because for one, our current systems have too many strings attached. To be accepted into one of the US government's many welfare programs, you need to go through a lot of bureaucracy and meet a lot of specific requirements. And the government will be watching you closely to make sure you don't ever slip up. Because if you do, they're taking those benefits right back. This is bad because not everyone can meet those requirements, and sometimes people are going to make mistakes or do things that would disqualify them from those programs. That shouldn't mean their entire livelihood is revoked. If you give everyone a basic income, it can't be revoked for any reason. If you exist in the country, you get a basic income. No matter the mistakes you made, no matter how bad you are at dealing with bureaucracy, you get a basic income so you can survive, no matter what.
Now, of course, there's a reason these stipulations are in place, because let's say I get $15,000. I mean, I could just go to Las Vegas and spend it gambling. I could buy a new truck. I could do anything, even though I don't actually need those things. We need stipulations for people to not waste the money. There's no point in giving people money if they're just going to spend it on things that they don't actually need.
Now, one of the things that people often worry about when it comes to UBI is the incentive to work. A lot of people have this idea that work is something people only do because it allows them to survive. And they believe that if you take away that incentive, people will stop working. I just don't think that's true. Working isn't always just about earning money to survive. Many people work because it's something to do, because it gives them a sense of accomplishment, because of the status it brings them, because it allows them to socialize with coworkers, because it's a creative outlet, or it's just something they enjoy. There are a lot of reasons that people work beyond money, and I think there's no way that if you gave everyone a basic income that they would all just stop working. Would you? I wouldn't. I mean, you can see an example of this in the world today, that lots of rich people who have enough money to sit on for the rest of their lives, they continue working. And clearly, at that point, it isn't about the money.
I do agree with this point. I don't think that most people will stop working just because they receive a base income, but I do think and know from experience living in a small town where a lot of people are on welfare that a lot of people do just stop working and rely on it and try to play the system.
But actually, this brings me to a related point, which is that not everyone needs to work. I might do a whole video on this eventually, but I'll give you the short version. We seem to have this idea that an ideal society is one where 100% of the population is working. But there's no need for that. For society to function, we don't need 100% of the population to be working. This isn't the olden days where everyone has to raise their own crops. Today, wealth is concentrated in the hands of a relatively small percentage of the population. So all we have to do is redistribute that wealth to everyone else, and we have enough to get by.
Alright, I knew this was coming. Alright, so Riley thinks that we should just Robin Hood it and steal from the rich and give to the poor. Obviously, I'm sure you can see the problems with this, as rich people are definitely not going to want to give up a large portion of their wealth just so that the rest of society can have more money. And also it discourages people from starting businesses that could become huge, because why would you do that if all you're going to be doing is giving away the money that you make anyway? A huge portion of the motivation of actually becoming a millionaire, multimillionaire, billionaire, whatever, is that you are able to do with that wealth what you please and not have to give up 90% of it to everyone else. As long as we're not taking from you, right, Riley?
You don't need to make people do pointless jobs just because you think everyone needs a job. Because the truth is, they don't. And if they want a job, which I'm betting a lot of people will, they can find something that they enjoy doing, like something creative or something that helps other people, instead of some repetitive, boring task created just for the sake of there being an official job for the person. And the need for us to recognize that jobs aren't essential is growing fast because of automation. Robots are taking over a lot of the more dangerous and tedious jobs, and that's really good for keeping people safe and freeing up people's time. But that also means that if nothing changes, those newly unemployed folks are going to be in a lot of trouble. That's where UBI comes in.
It's interesting that you consider automation taking people's jobs to be a good thing. Most people consider it to be an automation crisis that's just eliminating tons of jobs. Like even places like Uber, where people have jobs driving people around, they're not able to do that because they're designing cars that are able to drive themselves. Now, that's not in place yet, but they're hoping to be putting that in place soon. And it's a crisis because we don't really know how to solve it. If we did put the universal basic income into place, It would solve the problem, but the problem, once again, is where does the money come from? We don't know. Like, let's say for a second that 90% of the population stops working because of automation. Well, where does the government get its money to give everybody else their money if nobody is working?
And in some cases, there will be dangerous or gross jobs that can't be done by robots. And in those cases, a UBI would give workers the ability to demand safer working conditions and higher pay. Because right now, a lot of jobs have unsafe working conditions and low pay simply because employers know that people will take these jobs because they need them to survive. But if people no longer need your job to survive, you've got to sweeten the deal. So people would still take those jobs, but they'd be much safer and better paid. Because under this system, people would still have jobs and be paid. So if money is a huge motivator for you, you can still work to earn money above the amount you get from UBI.
Okay, problem with this. If the government were to be taking, let's say, 90% of what the business owner would be making, then they probably would not be able to pay you much more than what they would already be paying you. Of course, an organization that is likely having a unsafe job that you have to do is probably a pretty big one. Let's say like an oil rig or something like that. So they likely would not be able to pay you a whole lot. And I haven't done the math on how much businesses would have to actually give to the government to be able to pay everybody in the country, but I imagine it's a pretty high percentage.
So maybe you're wondering, how do we pay for all of this?
Actually, yes, Riley, I have been wondering that. Please enlighten me.
Giving everyone a livable income every month sounds expensive, and it is, but it's definitely possible. And the main solution is to tax the rich.
Okay, so the tax bracket in the United States for the rich that you're saying is 37% right now. That's pretty damn high. Now you might be thinking, oh, they make $1 billion a year. 37% of that is nothing. They'll have tons left over after 37%. Yes, they'll have tons left over, but the thing is you have to look at what they're actually taking. 37% of $1 billion is a ton of money. And contrary to popular belief, billionaires actually like to be able to do with their money what they like to do. Like Bill Gates, for example, gives to a bunch of different charities. He tried to start up a program to stop hurricanes. Now imagine taking 90% of his money and then saying you can't do any of the things that you want to do even though you've worked so hard for it.
They have so much money, they hardly know what to do with it. And income inequality has been rising for years. So that would be the main funding source, but also if a UBI were to be put into place, it would make a lot of welfare programs redundant. There might still need to be some much smaller programs for certain things, but the vast majority of money going to current welfare systems could be redirected into the UBI. That means that we're not just making money appear out of nowhere. We're just taking it from the rich and from the programs that we're replacing with the basic income. This is something we could afford.
So, no, this is not something that we can afford. And also you're an advocate for things like universal health care and a lot of other things that you would have to tax the rich to get. So at the end of the day, you're not going to have enough money. The rich aren't going to have enough money to be able to pay for all of the things that you were looking for.
And it would actually be good for the economy because people who had been too poor to really buy much would suddenly have disposable income, and that means they'd be spending more. More spending and more demand would result in a better functioning economy. So yeah, that's the idea behind UBI. Give everyone money, allow everyone to survive, raise the standard of living for everyone, and improve the economy. It might be a while before we can get there, but I have to believe that we can do it.
So really the whole point of this is not survival like Riley made it seem in the beginning. As she just stated, she said that a lot of people will have disposable income now. So basically you're giving everybody money so that they have disposable income. And then all the people that aren't working can just stay not working because they'll have income. Anyway, I hope that everybody can see that you should not take economical advice from Riley Dennis. And that's all for me today, so thank you all for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for future videos and an upcoming podcast. Check the description if you're interested in sources. Come back next week for another video. Peace.